guys, Hannah here. Welcome to my video and to my channel. I have succumbed. I have joined the book community online. Woo! It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. Today I'm going to be taking you through the books that I read in September. I read 8 books this month, which is a personal best. I feel like we had a really good mix this month. I had some mystery, some self-help, romance, of course, my personal favorite. I had one 5-star read, which I was stoked about, absolutely fell in love. So let's get into it. I am super new when it comes to like reviewing books and talking about books, so please bear with me if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. It's because I probably don't, but you know, we're gonna start somewhere. First book I don't actually have a physical copy of because I read it on Libby. The first book that I read this month was Ruthless Vows, which is the sequel to Divine Rivals, which I read around the same time last year. I rated this book 4.5 stars, which I was really surprised by because I think I rated Divine Rivals like a 3-star, so I was really stoked and surprised that I loved the sequel so much more than I did the original. Honestly, maybe I need to reread the original because I think I was a little distracted around the time that I was reading it, so maybe I should just reread it at some point. I don't want to have too many spoilers here, but I will say the story and the characters, the world building, the magic, it all was just so much more seamless in my opinion, and the whole book just felt really warm and comforting. Even like there were tragic things that happened and I cried like a baby through the end of the book, but it felt really comfortable. I don't know, it was just a really pleasant experience. The romance was so much more compelling in Ruthless Vows, I think. If you're wanting like enemies to lovers and then like total devotion and a fade to black kind of situation when it comes to spicy stuff, then the romance in this book is great for you. Divine Rivals, I felt like the romance kind of came out of nowhere, but Ruthless Vows, it was already set up and then it just got stronger. I feel like that worked a little bit better for me personally. The only thing that I didn't like, this book was so good. The only thing I wanted more of in this book was I wanted more of Enva. I assume that's how you say her name. She was kind of a mystery the whole way through the book that I was waiting to like be told more about, and then we just weren't. I don't think that's much of a spoiler, but I feel like she was such a like, and maybe that's the point, that she's kind of like this idea, but we didn't really get much detail about her. We got a little bit, but I wanted more. That's my main thing. I wanted to know more about Enva. The story was like 99% complete. I just feel like we needed that one little extra bit of like, we needed more Enva. That's my only critique. But 4.5 stars, I had a very good time, would highly recommend. The next book that I read was The Husband's Secret by Leanne Moriarty. This is an Australian book by an Australian author set in North Sydney, which is where I grew up. So it was really cool seeing like them hanging out at like DY Beach and me being like, oh my god, I went there all the time. It is a mystery kind of family drama sort of book. It's triple POV and I found it absolutely fascinating. This was a 4-star read for me. I don't really have any like critique. It just didn't give me that 5-star feeling. The characters are not likable in the slightest, but the situation is just so fascinating that I couldn't put it down. I was like waiting to pick this book back up so that I could see how everything would pan out. The book starts with one of the characters finding a letter that her husband had wrote that was confessing something. I won't tell you what it is because spoilers. Then you kind of see in that story how she wrestles with that like confession, and then you see how that like impacts other people and other sides of the story. It's just absolutely fascinating. The family dynamics are very real. I would say it's ugly and it's messy and it's just, you can't look away. It's like, it's a car crash. It's literally a car crash that you can't look away from. I also thrifted this book and it's really nice and floppy. Stunning. Anyway, next I read Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given. This was actually a reread for me. I originally read this in like 2020 or something. Do I think it's revolutionary these days? No. Do I think it was probably a little more groundbreaking when it first came out? Yeah, probably. I remember it being really influential for me. I was kind of on the track towards heading towards this mindset, but I wasn't quite there yet. So this book, when I first read it, was kind of that push that I needed, that like validation that the way I thought about the world was like valid. And then I decided to reread it because I had some negative influences in my life. I had gone through some traumatic events that kind of like, I didn't know who I was, and like all these things. This book is just a really good compass for me to come back to who I am, who I like to be. And not only that, it's also got some really cute art in there. Imagine you're just flipping pages, changing your outlook on the world, and you get to look at this cute art. Like, I'm sorry, I love a picture book. What can I say? Like, I'm sorry, I need this on my wall ASAP. This book, I think I technically read through August as well. It took a really long time for me to read this book. When I first started reading it, it was like I was really motivated to read it because I knew it was what I needed in my life, and it was, you know, bringing me home to myself. And then by the end of it, I was like, okay, I'm over that phase of my life. But I didn't want to, like, I don't know, I didn't want to stop halfway through. I wanted to finish it because I'm a completionist. I think I just had it dragging on a little bit too long. But if you're wanting a book that is a really accessible but won't coddle you introduction to feminism, I think this is a great place to start. So this one was a 4-star for me. I had a lot of 4 stars this month, I think. I don't think I will ever get over this book. This book was the first book to keep me awake all night in years. And you know, everyone raves about this book, but I finally got around to reading it. I actually got this for a Secret Santa at the end of last year, and I finally got around to reading it. It just, I understand why it gets so much hype. This book is about 2 people who have been through some very traumatic events, their journey to healing. It's not that they heal each other, because that kind of gives me the ick and causes codependency and all of that, but it's like they give each other the strength that they need to do the things that they need to do to heal. It's just, it's pure, and they are like supportive of each other, and they understand each other in a way that other people haven't been able to. I will say there were a few moments in this book that were really anxiety inducing in me, and I will say trigger warning for infidelity. I won't give any spoilers around the situation, but it triggered me and then I was fine. I've got my Goodreads open right now just to remember like how I was feeling when I read it, and to quote my Goodreads review, the book called out to my deepest desire to be seen, known and understood for both my past and my present, my hurt and my joy. It felt like a warm hug and a reminder that we are all inherently worthy of love and are lovable. A spark of hope. Past Hannah, you are so correct. I rated this book a 4.75 star. It was so close to being a 5-star read for me. The only thing, if I had ignored the epilogue, it would have been 5 stars. Unfortunately, I did read the epilogue. Here's the thing. I get the ick from parenthood in romance novels. It immediately turns me off. I can't. It ruins the experience for me. And that is part of the epilogue. Kind of a spoiler, but also not, because it's a trope it's a trope in the book. So there are like 2 epilogues. Am I thinking about that right? There are 2 epilogues. I've got the extended epilogue in the back of my book. I don't know if that's in all of them now, but I straight up skipped it because I'd already read the first epilogue and I was like, well, the vibes are off now. So I still haven't read the extended epilogue because I don't want to, which is a shame because the rest of the book was so good. It does give me a little bit of fanfiction vibes, the way the plot is just like so convenient, but I am a fanfiction girly. You may or may not know that about me. I recently became a published book girly, but I have always been a fanfiction girly. So I had no problem with it reading a little bit like fanfiction. Next up, we have Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. This I borrowed from the library and I've already returned, so I don't have the physical copy again, But I was really excited heading into this book. I was not rewarded for my optimism, unfortunately. I rated this book 2 stars. Ali Hazelwood writes a lot of science romances, which I think is super cute. But I've also heard that a lot of her books are very same, like they all feel very similar to read, and I think I chose one of the less well-regarded books of hers to read. I think I should have started with The Love Hypothesis. I think that's her most like beloved book. And again, trying to avoid spoilers, there was a moment in this book I almost DNF'd it pretty early on because there was a plot line about the male main character being like, oh, is he a dad? Which, as I mentioned, I don't like parenthood in my romance. Get that out of my soup. But without spoilers, I didn't end up DNFing it, and that was fine. No spoilers though, right? There was a lot of miscommunication in the book, which I know some people enjoy as a way to build tension, and it certainly made me tense. I personally find the miscommunication trope to be just a cheap shot at creating tension. I think it's lazy. Ugh, I don't want to be too mean, but also that's my opinion. The book was really trying to be this like fluffy romance, but to me it just translated to a book that has no stakes. Like, there were things happening that I knew were supposed to be important, but I didn't care about them. The romance, there were just I didn't like the characters, either of them. Not for the girlies who are physically repulsed by the phrase, it's just casual. It's really unfortunate because, as I said, I was really optimistic about it, but there was literally not a single second that I thought about this book when I wasn't reading it. Which is a bad sign. I was just kind of reading it so that I could say I'd read it, but I wasn't really enjoying it. I probably could have DNF'd it earlier, but I was waiting for it to get better. You know? I ended up rating this book 2 stars. I wouldn't recommend it, but there was some good qualities. It was a fun premise. The You've Got Mail trope was really fun. That's always a win in my book. Women in STEM, yay. Feminism, yay. But yeah, it was a romance book and I wasn't rooting for the romance, so something ain't adding up there. Next book I read, I also borrowed from the library. This I actually hadn't seen anything about this book. I was just walking around and I saw it and I thought it looked cute, so I picked it up without reading Goodreads like reviews or anything, and I was pretty pleasantly surprised. This is a gymnastics romance, which is super fun. The female main character is an ex-gymnast who just missed her shot for the Olympics and starts coaching this girl who is aiming for the Olympics alongside one of her old like gym mates, I think he is. They used to do competitions and stuff together way back when. So he invites her to help coach this girl called Hallie. Now Hallie was my favorite character, probably. I actually wasn't really rooting for the romance in this book, but I was really pulled in by the gymnastics. You could tell that the author was really, really passionate about gymnastics, and honestly I felt like this was more of a romance between Hallie and gymnastics than it was between the two romantic leads. It was optimistic without being naive. It was very upfront about what it's like to be an athlete, particularly what it's like to be a gymnast. The female main character I didn't really have many problems with, but the male main character I didn't like. He did a few unlikable things, and it was like the author was trying to give him a redemption, but to me, like, I already had the ick. I just wasn't intrigued by him, and I didn't care about his redemption. I actually got to the end of the book where the romantic leads had their like final reconciliation. They like got together and it was like happy ending, all of that. And I had a moment where I was like, I think the plot actually would have been better if they hadn't gotten together and they had just stayed like a professional relationship. But I do have to give a shout out to one particular scene involving gym mats that I spent the entire time going, children use those gym mats. I literally gasped when that scene started. I was like, you're kidding. Those poor children. So all in all, I didn't love the romance. I loved the gymnastics. It was a really easy read. I read it over 2 days, so I just kind of gobbled it down and I had a really fun time. Next up, we have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. This was a very highly anticipated read for me. I've had it on my TBR for a long time. I've heard incredible things. I actually recently started a book club, which I am so excited about. We haven't had the first meeting yet. We're gonna have that in like a week or two, and I'm so excited. So if you're part of the book club, maybe don't watch this video because we have to talk about the book at book club, so I don't want any spoilers. I'd heard so many people talk about this book being a 5-star read, and I was really excited to read it because I'd heard such great things. The characters were complex. I think it was interesting knowing more about the game development process. I thought that whole like concept and the characters were really interesting. I just thought the pacing was really slow. This book is 478 pages. I think it could have been about 300. I actually, when I finished the book, I closed the page and I was like, oh, thank God that's done, which is not a good sign. It's about the friendship between Sam and Sadie, who meet when they're quite young and then reconnect when they're in college. They bond over video games and then they start developing games together. And it's kind of about their journey through their friendship and the games that they make. If you're wanting a book that is really based on characters and investigating people more than it is following a plot that is like gripping and interesting, then I definitely recommend it. I think there are definitely interesting, complex characters. The writing, when I first started reading the book, the writing came across as quite pretentious, and then I don't know if that just lessened as the book went on or I just got used to it. There were a fair few times that I'd read half a page and then realize that I had zoned out, and it got to the point where I wouldn't even bother going back and rereading because I had never missed anything. Nothing had ever happened. There were also a bunch of time hops in the book, which I think were maybe supposed to spice up the pacing and like keep you on your toes, but they just felt kind of clunky to me. I don't know, I don't want to sound like a hater, but I had my hopes really high for this book and it did not match up to my expectations. All of my critique aside, this book deals with a lot of really heavy themes. There's grief and sexism, friendships, relationships, work dynamics, abuse, survivor's guilt, success, failure, compromise. There's lots of different things going on, and I definitely have a lot of respect for the way that those things were handled. I think honestly, The Husband's Secret has ugly characters, but it also has an intriguing storyline, and I loved this book. I didn't love this book, and I think the main difference was that this one was just like more drawn out and a little less intriguing in the plot. I think I would still probably recommend this book to the right person. I just don't think I was the right person for this book. And lucky last, we have got Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This book, this was a 5-star read for me. I have no notes. I loved it so much. I just guzzled this book up within a day. I think it was less than 17 hours. 8 of those hours I spent sleeping. Like, I just guzzled this book up. I absolutely loved it. It is the second book in the Maple Hills series. It's following Icebreaker. And again, like Divine Rivals, I didn't love Icebreaker, but I loved this book. They are kind of standalone books in a series. Like, the characters from book 1 are now background characters in book 2, so it's like the same world, but it's following different people. You don't have to read book 1 to be able to enjoy book 2. I borrowed this from the library and I think I have to go buy it just so that I like can read it and just gush at any time. It follows Aurora and Russ, and I have to say Russ is potentially my favorite book boyfriend. I have ever met. He is so cute and sweet and pure. The book starts with a bang, with a little spicy party, and then goes on to a summer camp, which is such a cute setting. Russ and Aurora are both camp counselors, and there's no fraternization rule, so there's tension. They can't, but they want to. There are puppies, there's found family. I mean, what's not to love? Literally, what's not to love? The thing that I love about these two characters is that they have their own wounds, which, I mean, kind of line up with my own, which is very satisfying to read. They have their own wounds that impact the way they interact with the world, the way that they approach romance, but they recognize that and they work on it. And again, similarly to Archer's voice, the relationship kind of gives them the strength to tackle it, but isn't the solution to their problems. They recognize that they had things going on, but they didn't become codependent to fix it. Also, there was almost a miscommunication trope, and they kind of recognized that and were like, actually, we're not going to do that. Let's talk about this. We don't do miscommunication. And oh, words cannot explain how much that just tickled me. I think this book single-handedly cured my abandonment wounds. This book just felt like sitting around a campfire with a warm blanket and a hot chocolate and some marshmallows. This was a book that I was like, I can't wait to reread. This was a 5-star from me. And those are all of the books. It was such a good month. There were a few dud books, but there were also some just delicious yummy books in there. This is my first ever monthly wrapped, and I hope you enjoyed it. I feel like even after filming this, I already know like how I can do even better next time, so maybe I'll make another one. Let me know what you think, and then maybe I'll make some more book content for you. I'm definitely in my book era through and through. Again, this was a personal best month for me. I have never read this many books in a month before, and I am absolutely stoked by it. If you're a reader like me, leave a comment with what books you read this month. If you've got any recommendations of books that you loved this month, please let me know. I'd love to read it too. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!